Hello, angels.
Good morning, Charlie.
It's me, Antonio D'Amico. This is Pointy Hat, and welcome to D&D with a Twist. That's right, it's time to mangle D&D beyond belief yet again. It's tradition. In this little internet show, I select a D&D thing that looked at me funny, I dissect it, I tell you what's up with it, and then we see how we can give that thing a twist that you can use in your own games. That's right, you get a goodie at the end of this. Imagine that. So when I think of Aasimar, I think of...
I can be your angry.
Aasimar is the race for people with guardian angel tattoos and those affected by very healthy amounts of Catholic upbringing. Aasimar, or autonomous meridian sensory response, is a tingling sensation that usually begins on the scalp. Over the last 5 or so years, it has exploded in popularity online with whole YouTube channels. Wait. No, wrong thing guys, wrong thing. Aasimar is the tiefling's boring sibling. If tieflings are what happens when someone gets a bit too close to the glowing spooky pentagram that the goth kids have painted in some abandoned house, Aasimar are the angel equivalent of that. They are mortals that have some sort of celestial influence in their blood. And there are like 17 versions of what this is exactly, so let's define what they look like before we get into that mess. While tieflings have their aesthetics on lock, or at least they do now, before their rebrand they looked not great. Aasimar very much do not. Like, oh boy, do they not have a distinct look. The celestial aspect of Aasimar can manifest in many different ways, and D&D has had a time deciding on these. Sometimes they're described as extremely pretty, which I guess it's in the eye of the beholder.
Let me ask the audience.
Sometimes they have spooky pale eyes, sometimes their eyes are golden, sometimes they have silver hair or golden hair. Since they can descend from any celestial and D&D celestials look like that, they could get weirder with green skin or, I guess, animal bits because some celestials are furries. Do you see what I mean by Aasimar don't have a cohesive visual identity yet? Most official art nowadays makes this even more confusing since we literally only ever see them looking not like they're described. I guess this guy has glowing pale eyes, and someone put a sticker on his forehead. So I guess that means angel. In Monsters of the Multiverse, the designers tried to codify the look of Aasimar. Keyword tried. The book gives you some ways to make your character look Aasimar-ish, and they are all very weird. Way too subtle, not particularly eye-catching, and have nothing to do with anyone's idea of celestial. We get weird freckles, glowing eyes, technicolor hair, a weird shadow color? What? Rainbow skin, and the only one that looks related to anyone's idea of a celestial, a halo. Anyway, Aasimar look visually confused, but let's put a pin in that and get into their lore. Before we get into lore proper, I want to talk inspiration. Storytellers find inspiration in all possible places. You might have found inspiration in unlikely sources yourself, but it's not always that we find a place that gathers inspiration on sources we're familiar with, but we never dare to plunder in search of that particular spark that made us love them in the first place, so that we can put those ideas we love in our own tales. And that's great, because that's exactly what 1985 Games is doing with Obojima. The campaign setting inspired by, wait for it, Studio Ghibli and Zelda. This is my hole. It was made for me. Before I say anything, let's take a second to look at this art. I don't know how to convey that this is exactly the sort of style I would go for a whole D&D campaign. It makes me so happy to see D&D projects that go for a different art style than the traditional realistic D&D painterly vibe. The art in Obojima is so quaint, and it wears its inspirations on its sleeve, but also goes beyond them and does its own thing with them. The art is stunning and reason enough to back the whole thing, but there is way more reasons. Obojima is 250 plus pages filled to the brim with content that brings that gold Zelda Ghibli vibe. We have potion brewing rules, we have 8 subclasses like the College of Masks for Bards, which we all know what's that referencing and I couldn't be more excited, but brand new concept like the Sheep Dragon, which is today the only dragon I've ever been excited to see. And vending machines in a high fantasy setting left by humans of a long forgotten era. As I said, you can feel the inspiration all throughout this book. The vibes are immaculate. So if this sounds appealing, and it's very appealing to me, no doubt, you can check it out in the description of this very video. The campaign is live right now. Okay, now that I have salivated enough about this, back to Aasimar lore. Aasimar lore is, small, but it's there. They have celestial in them, somehow, and that somehow varies wildly. There are basically 3 versions. The original 5e version is the one from the DM's guide. Aasimar are defined as the descendants of celestial beings, which is the polite way of saying that Granny prayed with a lot of zealous fervor. And now, very rarely, some of the descendants of Granny are born as babies with glowing eyes. Then came Volo's Guide to Monsters, where Aasimar got a lot of shine and some weird, very weird retconning that I don't like. According to Volo, Aasimar are said to have like A guy like a celestial regional manager that is in some way connected to them and tells them what to do. This celestial is referred to as their patron in D&D Beyond, which is, I don't know, weird? I think they were trying to do something similar to how tieflings are often associated with the warlock class, but one thing is to associate it, like make the warlock art a tiefling, and another thing is to pigeonhole the race into a class? I find this extremely and needlessly limiting. Anyway, in the Volo version, they get their patron manager, although reception in heaven is not great, so their manager doesn't really talk to them, but rather just gestures vaguely towards what they think that the Aasimar should be doing. They send them spooky visions, they talk in riddles, they play charades, you know, very useful stuff. Monsters of the Multiverse, on the other hand, thankfully walks back the whole celestial sugar daddy aspect and instead goes for vagueness. They specifically mention heritage, so we are back to the sexually inventive grandma timeline, but also go with the impossibly vague, otherwise infused with celestial power, which wins the I don't know whatever award for impressive non-commitment to a concept. There's talk of Aasimar lineages, where family lines have this celestial spark after their great-great-great-grandpa was really into praying, and now one kid in 20 or something comes up with spooky glowing eyes and an angelic choir every time they enter a room. Oh, and also Monsters of Multiverse also made it so that any mortal race can be an Aasimar. Praise be. Interestingly, there's much more talk about Aasimar tending to be good than there is of tieflings tending to be evil. Probably because people tend to play good characters and evil characters are seen as a bane at most tables. I said most, guys, don't get mad, you know it's true. Traditional Aasimar stories follow the fictional trend of the weird touched by an angle kid who has a hard time making friends because they're just so pure and they don't fit in. And there's something so ethereal and otherworldly about them, which makes Aasimar the prime candidate for dual-wielding half-winged vampire angel characters, which I am in full favor of, by the way. They're also said to be particularly empathetic and kind, which is less cool and more nice, I guess. And there's even talk about them suffering prejudice, which, considering that they are described as impossibly beautiful, it does conjure very specific Mary Sue-ish ideas of characters that are just too beautiful and everyone hates them for it. It's all very, my thin body, pale skin, silver hair, and icy gray eyes makes everyone treat me so badly kind of vibes.
My small breast and my little frame and my sweet little girl voice, it exudes something in people that is extremely passionate.
And you know what? Good. We need more unabashed Mary Suing in the world. Just not on my table.
I am divine feminine energy.
In terms of society, Aasimar get even less than tieflings. Nothing cool here like virtue names. Aasimar are even rarer than tieflings, so there's basically no Aasimar society to speak of. They are said to be drawn to follow a religious path in life, which I guess makes sense, kind of typecasting there, but hey. A cool little tidbit is that Aasimar make for especially tempting targets for devils and demons, since they contain higher levels of good. And that's pretty much it. I'm not gonna get into Farron specifics because who cares, but you know what's actually fun to talk about? Abilities. So Aasimar abilities have changed substantially even within 5e, just like their lore. I literally cannot talk about all of them until we get to the next section, so let's go over the newest release really quick. Creature type, humanoid. Not human, but any humanoid. Congrats to all of you that wanted to make a divine goblin. Rejoice, for your dream is finally a reality. Speed is 30 feet, size is acute, obtuse, or right. Get it? It's an angle joke because angle is spelled similar to angel, whatever. You can be smaller, medium, moving on. For our first actual ability, Celestial Resistance. You get resistance to radiant and necrotic damage. Every resistance is good, and these guys get 2. Real talk, I'm not much of a balance, but Aasimar do feel, you know, like a bit OP. Like, did they need this and Dark Vision and healing and Super Saiyan mode? Anyway, next up, Dark Vision. Are you surprised? Me neither. Healing Hands. You heal for a number of d4s equal to your proficiency bonus, and then you have to go Mimir until you use it again. Monsters of the Multiverse did away with nearly all of the long rest abilities, so no clue why they kept this one. I guess they were really scared that you could keep hoarding this and use it to bring people back up from unconsciousness if you could divide how much health you gave away like the Paladin. Whatever. Light Bear. You can cast light. The ability specifies that you cast this with charisma, as if it mattered. And finally, Celestial Revelation. Alright, we get into the actual meat of the abilities. And for us to understand this, we need to talk sub-races and the lack of them. So, funny story about Monsters of the Multiverse, the term sub-race is gone. That means that we don't get sub-races anymore, but rather either sub-races become their own races, like each Genasi being its own different race, or they are just deleted, or rolled into the base race. And the Aasimar is kind of in the deleted camp, and kind of in the rolled into the base race camp. Aasimar used to have 3 sub-races, and now it has 3 Celestial Revelation abilities that correspond to one of the old sub-races. You pick one of these at level 3, and you stick with that one forever. And they're all some flavor of entering Super Saiyan mode and being able to do various stuff for 1 minute a day. While I totally get why they did away with the term sub-race, and the term race to be honest, I'm in favor of it, I do so hate how getting rid of the concept of racial options for one specific race flattens the race, because the Aasimar sub-races were kind of cool in terms of flavor, and we kinda lost that with this. So I'll still talk about them, but I'll connect them to the abilities that have replaced them. Cool? Cool. First up, Protector Aasimar. This is the boring one. That's it. Protector Aasimar are your basic concept of angelic guy. They are just nice. The nice guy race. When they're not complaining on Reddit about finishing last, Protector Aasimar use their powers of good to be good and do good things for good. Like defeating the forces of darkness, keeping those with ill intentions from taking over the world, fighting evil by moonlight, winning chastity by daylight. There really isn't much more to them than that. They used to get a +1 to wisdom, but in the mom book, they got rid of stat increases tied to races, which good. Just good. Not even gonna get into the debate. It's a good change. And put the Protector Aasimar into a juicer that reduced it to just one single ability, Radiant Soul. You conjure the ancient divine powers of magical girldom and sprout 2 wings made of light, which give you a flying speed and allow you to deal radiant damage equal to your proficiency bonus to all damage you inflict with an attack or spell. Pretty powerful stuff. Honestly, it's not like we lost some groundbreaking flavor here, so whatever, but the same cannot be said about Fallen Aasimar. You know what time it is. Fallen Aasimar are exactly what you think they are. They have been corrupted by the evils of the world, and their celestial glow is replaced by dark energy. Even still, some Fallen Aasimar hold on to their ability to do good, even if the world never did any good to them. Okay, play it again. Never gets old, man. You know we had to have the Edgelord Fallen Angel representation, and Fallen Aasimar is here to deliver exactly that. Cringe is dead, and its ghost is wearing smudged black eyeliner and a Shadow the Hedgehog t-shirt. As I said, they are generally the product of a normal Aasimar dealing with some sort of corruption. Or if you follow the Volo lore, which they seem to be moving away from, they are the product of them not listening to whatever celestial entity they are linked to. But they are never stated to be exclusively evil, and in fact are mentioned to be just as capable of good. So it literally is just for aesthetics, I guess, which I love. We all know someone that is itching to play this particular brand of Dark Marisu / Stew, Ebony Darkness Dementia Ravenway, and they should very much be able to do exactly that, which is once again why I feel like transforming these into just abilities is sort of a shame. As for that ability, it's fine. Necrotic Shroud makes your eyes all spooky and dark and spooky, and makes you sprout skeletal wings that are explicitly said to be flightless, so I guess they're ostrich wings? Or better yet, penguin wings? Seeing you in your penguin form of doom is too much for others to bear, and they have to save or be frightened of you, which is objectively worse than being able to fly, but whatever. And you also add necrotic damage to your attacks. Neat. Moving on to the last but not least, we have, or had, Scourge Aasimar. This one is sort of like Edge adjacent, but specifically of the Angie variety. Scourge Aasimar is here to bring the God Warriors flavor to the Aasimar extended family, and their motif is not light or penguins, but fire. Their wings are fire, their powers are fire, their whole face is fire, with many of them wearing a mask to sort of contain the whole righteous flame of heaven that is their face. Their whole thing is this weirdly all-consuming desire to defeat evil, less in a we must save good Protector Aasimar kind of way, and more in a I just hate evil very much all the time and I wish to fight it Scorch kind of way. Pretty cool flavor. We rarely see divine anything being flavored as bloodthirsty and militaristic and fueled by hatred, and I think that's cool.
Angels of fire.
Unfortunately, we lose this flavor as Scorch has been distilled into yet another single ability, Radiant Consumption. Side note, I hate that 2 of these have the word radiant in it, and then there's just one called Necrotic Shroud. Let's keep it on theme, guys. Come on. Anyway, Radiant Consumption turns you into a celestial halogen lamp for 1 minute, shedding bright light. It's so bright, in fact, that every creature within 10 feet of you takes radiant damage equal to your proficiency bonus. That's right, no save, no attack, it just takes it. And not only that, but once per turn, you can point your flashlight as you attack a creature for them to take double the radiant damage. This is an insanely good ability for a tank, like borderline too good in my opinion, but it does communicate the whole Angie angle from heaven pretty well. And that's Aasimar. They had pretty thematic subrace options back when subraces were a thing. They had them way before Tieflings, as they originally appeared in Volo's Guide to Monsters in the hell year of 2016, and Tieflings only got their subrace options officialized in 2018 with a book written by that scary DreamWorks eyebrow wizard. Stop it, you beast, stop it with the eyebrow thing, you demon! So all in all, pretty similar to tieflings, even in their lore. So, why is it that they see way less play than them? Why is it that Aasimar are just, overall, the clearly less popular option than their pointier siblings? And I'm not pulling that assertion out of a hat, by the way. If we look at the popularity survey, for which 100,000 characters were counted, which is pretty good, we see that... yeah, but that's no good. Aasimar are the least popular D&D race. Like, Aarakocra are more popular, and not by a little. And that's a race famous for getting banned at tables. Meanwhile, tieflings have literally become a core race since 4E, being up there with Tolkien brain staples like elves, and are the 6th most popular race. So, why?
Why?
Well, let's get the first and most basic and probably the biggest reason why out of the way first. Because tieflings are just objectively cooler in every sense of the word. Tieflings are mortals that have been tainted by the powers of hell, both blessed by the breath of their fiendish powers and cursed to be ostracized by their peers for their appearance. That's just cooler and edgier than God's sweetest soldier. But I think there's more to it than just that. And I've been dancing around those reasons for the first half of this video, so let's get to them. I think there are mainly two. The first one is their looks. This sounds mean, but it isn't. I'm not calling them ugly. Well, I mean, they don't look pretty in the art, but whatever, that's not the point. Aasimar suffer from having a poorly defined look. There's just no clear picture of what an Aasimar looks like. Having a defined look doesn't mean no variance, like I outlined on my video on tieflings, which is way too old, and I sound like I'm scared of being too loud or something, so I struggle to tell you to go watch it. One of the reasons I believe that tieflings are so gosh darn popular is how customizable they are. But they stay within a template. Horns, tails, technicolor skin. Some people go outside of that temple and give them, I don't know, funky legs or whatever, but the template is there. Everyone knows what a tiefling looks like. And Aasimar, sometimes it's glowy eyes, sometimes it's bioluminescent freckles. Whatever, it's strange, it's weird, it doesn't even read angel to anyone that doesn't already know what they're looking at. They don't have an iconic look, that recognizable, trademarked appearance that people can recognize and iterate on. You can say all you want about dwarves being basic, but they are small, compact, and they have fun beards. That's already much more iconic and clearly defined than, what was it again? Weird shadow colors? Funnily enough, guess what race had this exact same problem? Tieflings. The tiefling look prior to it being codified as what it is today could be defined as, I don't know man, pretty much whatever. Some were slimy, some were furry, some had gross eyes, some had horns. This was to signify that they could come from the influence of any devil. But then lore stuff happened, this guy was involved, and now they look like what we know tieflings to look like. Real talk, this was way more of a design decision than a lore decision. There's an incredible write-up about how the look of the tiefling was defined for 4th edition by William O'Connor. It's great. I'm just gonna leave it in the description because as much as I want to talk concept art and design, this video is already too long. So that's my first reason, but what is my second reason? The second reason as to why Aasimar are my 13th reason is also quite simple. They have no conflict. I talked about this yet again in that cursed tiefling video that for some reason has a ton of views, but I sound like I don't want to wake up my parents in it. But tieflings are so compelling because they have conflict baked directly into the design of the race. Or at least they did before, but apparently we're getting rid of that in 5.5e or 6e or D&D 1 or whatever. And I'm just a very normal level of upset about this. To summarize, tieflings are woobies. A woobie is a character that was designed for you to feel bad for and to root for because bad things happen to them through no fault of their own. In that very same interview I was talking about, the creative director who was responsible for the visual direction of D&D during 4th edition, Stacey Longstreet, defined tieflings in one sentence as the cursed people. Tieflings look like devils, but they are not more likely to be evil than any normal mortal. They just look fiendish, and they face oppression because of that. That's instant conflict. That's something to root for. That's someone that could start a revolution. That's someone that could fight against the system, or learn how to play within it, or betray their kin to show that they are one of the good ones. That's the power of baking in conflict and the vaguest amount of world building into D&D races. It sparks that kind of imagination. Aasimar? Well, there's been like token efforts to do something like that. The whole regional manager patron version of them in Volo also introduced conflict, but that's the conflict for the warlock. That's the conflict that the warlock introduces. You can't steal the conflict from a class and give it to a race. Bad book. Bad. Aasimar are saddled with the idea of perfection and also the just undeniable fact that people would generally be pretty nice to someone that is ungodly beautiful and also literally associated with heaven through blood. All the talk about how Aasimar tend to be good and pure and kind and nice doesn't help with the general vibe of it being boring. So those are the reasons I believe why Aasimar finds itself at the very bottom of the popularity polls. But hot take here. I think that the baseline ideas behind the race can make for an extremely compelling character if we just tweak it a little. What if we gave Aasimar a codified iconic appearance? What if we took that general disposition to do good and instead of making it a character trait, we made it a requirement? What if we took that misguided idea of giving the Aasimar a baked-in patron and flipped it around? Let's go. Guardian angels have a theoretically very simple duty. They are members of the angelic court that have been sent by their god to look over a specific mortal. Guardian angels are members of the third sphere, the lowest sphere in the court and the one that is furthest away from their god. They are the ones made to interact with mortals directly, and it's this distance from the divine and this closeness to the mortal experience that leads some guardian angels to develop their own version of sentience. It's a rare occurrence, but some guardian angels develop actual feelings for the mortals they are tasked to protect. Angels were conceived by the divine as mere executants, divine constructs that follow their god's commands unwaveringly and without question, devoid of feelings. But closeness to mortals can change them, instilling in the angel actual emotions. And when this happens, and the mortal and the angel enter a relationship, their coupling can give birth to a vigil. Vigils are the product of the union between a mortal and the guardian angel that was watching over them. Vigils are instantly recognizable for their halo, which all vigils sport and which varies in appearance depending on the god that their angelic parents served, with some being made out of ethereal light, while others taking the shape of crackling lightning or shining metallic gold. The halo appears around a vigil's head in adolescence, but a vigil can be recognized from birth from their second recognizable characteristic, their vestigial wings. These are much too small to be used for flight, but all vigils have at least a set. The most common placement is on either side of the head, although some vigils see their wings sprout at their heels, their forearms, or their hips, but never their backs. Vestigial wings and halos might be the most common and characteristic telltale signs of a vigil's celestial blood, but others may appear, albeit much more rarely. These rare angelic qualities include additional sets of eyes, often a different color from their natural ones, white feathers that grow around their joints, and the tips of their fingers being white and hard as marble or metallic as gold. It isn't uncommon for these divine markers to change or to evolve throughout a vigil's life, some believing they get more pronounced if the vigil gets closer to the divine source of their magic, rendering their appearance more unnerving or more beautiful depending on who you ask. These visual changes are a mark of the divine spark that was passed down to them by their angelic parent. But this parent has not only passed down their power, but also their duty. Vigils have what is called a ward, someone they are metaphysically connected to, and to whom they must protect at all costs. They are mortal guardian angels, tasked not by the divine, but by their lineage to protect the soul of another. Vigils do not choose their ward. A vigil's servitude is thrusted upon them by forces that no one really understands. Some say it's fate, and the ward is someone that must absolutely be kept alive so that they can fulfill a specific purpose, while others say that who a vigil's ward is just a random, capricious twist of the cosmos. Whatever the case may be, the bond between a vigil and their ward cannot be broken, no matter how much either of them wishes for this not to be the case. Vigils are not gifted just with divine powers, but specific abilities that help them safeguard their ward. Vigils know the general location of their ward, but also their emotional state, and if they are in danger. The vigil feels the ward's pain, their distress, their anger, but also their happiness, excitement, and joy. But this connection runs even deeper than that. If the ward dies, the vigil dies with them. The vigil's soul is intrinsically connected to the divine spark of their progenitor, and if their ward dies, this spark is extinguished, which in turn extinguishes the vigil's life. How a vigil leads their life with this reality depends on the vigil. Some vigils take on their protective role naturally, but not all of them do. A vigil might be predetermined to ward someone, but they're not predetermined to be good or caring or kind to them. Some deeply resent their fate as vigils, and can't stand the fact that their existence is tied to a perfect stranger, forced into a life of servitude for someone they didn't choose and don't know. Or, more upsettingly, someone they greatly dislike. There are stories of vigils keeping their wards under lock and key for their entire lives, keeping them from harm, but also keeping them from living a full life. There are also stories of wards deeply resenting their vigils, despising the fact that a perfect stranger watches over their every move, preventing the ward from living life as they see fit. There are even accounts of wards killing their vigil, something they can do since a ward's life doesn't end with that of the vigil. There are, however, just as many stories of Vigils and wards falling deeply in love with each other, mirroring in a way the love story that gave birth to the Vigils' existence. There are entire lineages of Vigils and wards, families that are somehow tied together as the divine spark moves through the generations, with a noble family of wards and a butler family of Vigils. There are love stories that reoccur between two families where members of the two families are connected through a Vigil and a ward bond, and they fall in love with one another every 10 generations, as if they were fated to do so. The feelings that a Vigil and their ward have for each other may vary, but it's a sad truth that because of the unbreakable bond shared between them, their stories end in tragedy more often than they reach a happy ending. So, what do you think? I dare say that's pretty compelling. Vigils fit the angel tropes with the whole guardian angel protector, but they give it a twist, get it? By making them also mortal, which means that if their ward dies, they die. What is more Aasimar than a mortal guardian angel? For looks, all Vigils have a halo, which is the angel signifier, but you can customize that halo however you please. I'm also a big fan of vestigial wings. I think it works so well for the concept of the Aasimar, the whole vestigial concept of them. I also happen to think these are just pretty, and also wings are such an angel thing that I had to make them the second iconic visual signifier. But you also have other customization options on top of that to stay true to the vibe of the race. But just like all tieflings have horns, all Vigils have that halo. They have that iconic look. I also tried to pull from different sources for the other signifiers of divinity. So you can have the glowing eyes, but if you find that boring like I do, you could have more eyes. And suddenly you're less fat baby flying with little wings kind of angel and more of a biblically accurate horror kind of angel. You get to choose. In terms of conflict, of course it's the whole connection to a ward. Imagine being thrust into that situation from birth, knowing that there's someone out there that you have to protect or else you literally die. How would someone react to that? What if your ward is a complete stranger? What if you don't get along? What if it's someone that another party member has vowed to kill? What if your ward is another party member? Now, of course I understand that there are those of you out there from whom the whole "you die if your ward dies" is not your cup of tea, too much of a liability. But I also know there are many that would absolutely love that kind of plot hook or that idea to build a character around. So if you do, go ahead and make it. Come on, make the Vigil. Make the entire racial option. I'm waiting. Oh, what's that? You think that I already made the Vigil and that it's in the description of this very video already and for 100% certified free? Well, I'm very sorry to inform you that you're correct. Yes, the Vigil, the new racial option inspired by Aasimar, is in the description of this very video for 100% Pointy Hat certified free. So go out there, put on your favorite Nightcore playlist, watch Buffy a couple more times, and be the angel with a shotgun. And done. It's done. The video is done. I had to write and record and make like 3 of these videos back to back because I was going to be in America for a little while for Gen Con and other stuff, and I knew I couldn't work on videos, and oh god, was this a ton of work. But here it is. I'm honestly really proud of this one. Aasimar is one of the races that doesn't really appeal to me. I'm just a very visual person, and an iconic look is like a good 50 to 60% of a racial option for me when I'm playing any game. And the rest is like plot hooks and roleplay opportunities that the racial option gives me, and the Aasimar just didn't tick those 2 boxes for me at all. But the Vigil sure does, so I hope you dig them as much as I do. If you do, go ahead and tell me who your ward would be. I think it's fun to see the different options for those. And also if you did, you know, it'd be cool if you subscribed or liked or one of those things.
Please, sir, may I have 1 subscribe? Please, sir, may I have some more?
Okay, I'm about to write the next video because I'm still prepping for when I leave. Oh god, the amount of work. Anyway, pray for me, I guess. If you do that, that's thematic. Don't pray if you don't. Maybe try it out. I don't know. This is probably the worst end of a video advice I've written so far. I feel like I'm getting worse at these with every video. Okay, enough. End of video. Bye-bye. Bye. Mwah.